in that role. Thank you, Silas. So I'm gonna share my screen real quick. While I'm bringing it up, if you have any questions, you can also ask. No questions? Right. So when it comes to the STLC, I know it's I'm gonna make it bigger for you. When it comes to the STLC, I mentioned one of the steps um that when you get to that step, you create this test plan. Who can tell me what that step is? In what step do we create a test plan? Is Theo available? You able to tell me what in what step we create the test plan?
The
Yeah,
design.
I'm driving. That's why. I
Okay,
think is
okay.
the design stage.
Design. Okay. Who agrees with him? That's what you think he's right?
He right.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so the design phase and the design phase in SDLC phase, SDLC cycle. When we say design, that's when a blueprint is built, right? So with that blueprint, that's what we look at to be able to build the system, right? So um just like the prototype or the blueprint, the test plan is also in a way it serves the same purpose for us in the STLC, right? We followed the test plan to be able to do a thorough testing to make sure the system is, working as good as we want it to be. So for every document as a business analyst, right? You'll be creating business requirement documents, right? You'll be creating user stories. And sometimes if there are no system to input these documents, um, you might have to do it manually, or you might have to get on a Word document or Excel or something like that to create the documents that you need. So this is one of them. So um, we put something together for you guys to, as an example. Even after the class, you're able to always refer to this. So every time that you're creating a document for any type of document for business analyst testing or anything like that, first of all, you need to have uh your you need to have your table of contents, right? So that's where we start from. And then it goes into revision history. So every time there's a change in the document, you have to put a date, maybe change the revision number to maybe 1.0. You can do 2.0 the next time, or you can do 1.1 the next time, right? You just have to document, just so we know it was changed. And whoever changed it, you put your name down and the description of the reason for the change or the reason for the document, right? So, for example, this one, the first time you create it, it will be the first release, right? Initial release. That's when your revision starts. And then your name, initial release, right? So the next one, maybe you modified it. You can just say, you can put a date, you can put a revision 1.1, put your name and a description, the reason why you did a modification, or what kind of modification did you do. Can you call it second release, or you can use whatever change that you made to update that. And it comes to straight into the document. We need introduction, right? So we created this in a way that you can just, whatever system that you're working on, all the X's, you just change it to the name of the system that you're working with, right? So you need the purpose of the document, the background, um, so these two, they will talk about why you're doing the testing and what the testing is all about, the system that you're testing on. So this is a very tedious process. So that's why most of the time the test lead, or the QA lead, or the manager actually takes lead on it, because it needs to be a document that um it will serve as a template, right? So when you get on the market, all of these is like a plus, because um these kind of documents are created by a very experienced QAs, and that's why you go in the market as very experienced personnel. So it's kind of like any introduction, right? Whenever you're doing introduction, you need a purpose for whatever you're doing, the background, right? The background of what you are introducing to the audience, right? And also summary. So the summary just summarizes the testing that we do, right? Um, so it also the items that will be on the test, and also the items that are not on the testing. So it's called, you can also call it scope, right? So what's in scope, what's out of scope. So let me go back to uh, PowerPoint real quick. If you have the PowerPoints, you can pull it. I'm gonna go back to it real quick. So in the PowerPoint, I also added some of the definitions, and gave a little bit of background as far as when it comes to the test plan, right? So um again, who can tell me what a test plan is? Andrea, can you tell me what a test plan is?
Test plan and basically gives you an outline based on the requirements needed in order to run through a test, basically to verify the program's working properly.
Yep, I like the way you put it in your own words, and perfect. Um, yep, so here I have, so also you can use some of the items that you put in the test plan to also define it, right? So a test plan is a very detailed document that contains objectives, the test strategy, the scope for the testing, types of testing that you'll be doing, testing risk. Doesn't have to be all of these. You can mention a couple of them, right? And whoever you're talking to will know you know exactly what you're talking about, right? So I do have definitions for each one of these, right? Each one of the items that goes in there. So like I said, some test plans can be 1,000 pages, right? Because we want to include all the requirements or all the test cases that we create, and the test cases are based on all the requirements. So the more the requirements are, the longer the test plan might be. All right. So you have your objective, the overall goal and achievement. So when we say the objective, it falls under the introduction, and also a test strategy, the high level document that defines what we need for the testing as far as effort and cost, right? So the test strategy we will make assumptions in a document to show what kind of effort that the testing is going to be needed, right? And also the cost, right? So that's why also the managers, they actually privy to what type of budget they're dealing with. So that's why they create some of these documents, but they can also assign parts of it to you, right? Then the scope. So we have components that needs to be tested, and also parts that don't need to be tested. So when we say in scope, it means all the items or the components that we need to test. So every single thing that we need to test will be in scope. And mainly the in scope will be the functional requirements, right? What's a functional requirement? Amita, do you remember what a functional requirement is? Sorry, I'm picking on you a little bit.
No, it's okay. I'm losing my voice a little, so bear with me. Functional requirement is the basically front end and what we can interact with on the app.
Perfect. Excellent. So the functional requirement, everything that you can interact with, usually are in scope, right? Those are as a tester or as a business analyst, those are the stuff you got the requirements on, right? And also as a tester, those are the stuff that we test, the stuff that we see, the stuff that we can interact with. So what then will out of scope be? Kofi, are you with us? Who can tell me what out of scope will be based on what we just explained?
I'm assuming non-functional requirements then.
Excellent. So non-functional requiremends or any other requirements that we don't really, the user will not interact with, right? So the backend documentation requirements, we might the requirements might require us to create like a process flow, right? The process flow is for just the business, it's not for the end user. So that would be also out of scope, right? We don't need to test that. Any questions? Then it comes to testing type. So what are some of the testing types, Jasper? No, I don't need definitions. Just whatever you can remember as far as the stuff that we mentioned as types of testing. Oh, you muted.
Analyze, develop, and analyze, develop, and then also
So everything that you mentioned is just part of the cycle,
cycle. Okay.
the STLC. But right at this point, I'm looking for a type of testing, right? We just had a review on some of them. Do you remember? Yeah, so we broke them down into two. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not sure if white box and black box testing are the same, together. Or I didn't.
So it's types of testing, right? But so that's how we break them down. We have white box and black box. So one of them coding is involved, and one of them coding is not involved, right? So perfectly correct. Those are some types of testing, right? Then also some other types of testing fall under those two, right? For example, we talked about regression testing, right? Very important ones. UAT testing, user acceptance testing, also smoke testing, sanity testing, penetration testing, performance testing. We only went over some of the important ones that I feel like it will benefit you guys if you know what it is, especially positive, negative testing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so that falls outside of the 4 types of testing then?
4 types? What are the four
Well,
types of testing?
the dev, QA, staging
Tho-
and
tho-
yeah,
Those are not types of testing. Those are the environments that
environment. Okay.
yeah, as a business analyst, as a QA, you will work in those environments.
Okay.
So those environments, once for example, a developer or the project manager gives you access to those environments, you can do your testing in those environments. So those are the 4 types of environments. Does that make sense? All right, so let's get to risk and mitigation. So in your test plan, you also need to define risk. What are the risks for testing, right? And also while you're making the risk assumptions, also how can we mitigate these risks? How can we minimize the impact or not for it not happening at all, right? So the future uncertain event with probability of happening and how we can solve it, right? When it becomes an issue. So risk and mitigation. So you can use the first part, the future uncertain event with probability of happening will be the risks, and mitigation is how we can solve it, right? When it happens. So who can who can give me an example as a scenario or anything like that that can be considered as, for example, as a risk or mitigation for anything at all? Just want to know, just want to see if you guys understand.
Okay, I'm gonna go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like if you log in into like a software or any application, and then
Yeah.
let's say you miss your logins for the test time, then it's gonna raise a red flag. So that's like a mitigation that they put in the software or the application to signal them if anything goes wrong with a false login.
Mhm. Yeah, that's an issue, but um the purpose for doing this, I don't, that's not what I'm looking for. But very
Is
nice
it
try. Mhm.
what if like someone trying to like let's say hack into your account, like data leakage and all that? Isn't that part of like risk?
Yeah,
Those are fake.
that's a risk. But when those are the risks for the developers. But when it comes to testing, something that can be detrimental to us being able to get our work done, right? Or something that can be a problem for this part of the whole SDLC as far as testing goes, right? So everything that you guys are mentioning can be considered as risk, but I want something to, something that pertaining to testing. For example, what if the environment is not ready for testing, right? We have to make that assumptions that, yeah, if the environment is not ready for testing, you can't really um go ahead and do your testing. How can that be mitigated? Or how can that be, that problem be removed or solved?
Can I give an example too? Maybe
Yes.
I might be wrong, but I
No,
want to
no,
try.
there's no wrong answers. Yeah, go ahead.
Got you. So basically, I was thinking tax solutions like your website, right? And then let's say one time you have like a lot of people on it, like trying to get onto the website. And then let's say like you're trying to get into it and it says like system unavailable. Would that be like something that like it can be like something that can happen in the future? So you have like a mitigation to like, how do we solve that?
Yeah. So that's a good one. For example, like anything that would prevent us from doing our testing. For example, it doesn't have to be a lot of people, right? But sometimes even 3 people, maybe at that point, the system is only designed for 2 people at the moment, right? And if um developers are on, for example, if you're on SharePoint, right? And a couple of people you are trying to, do you know what a SharePoint is? First of all, I'm asking in general. Who can tell me what a SharePoint is? So SharePoint is one of the tools
Oh,
that,
never mind.
yeah, go ahead, Kiana.
Oh, SharePoint is like it's like a tool that everybody can collaborate on in the workspace, and I think it's a really good tool because you can do a lot of different stuff in it and create like websites and all that stuff. So like you said, multiple people can be on that application at one time, and
Mhm.
if it's not built for multiple people to be on it, then it'll crash.
Yeah,
So it won't work.
yeah, yeah. So,
I
Eman,
think
that was a good, yeah. Go ahead.
okay. So I think it's the public is used by companies where public documents are being placed there for each and every one individual who have access to that SharePoint can access it at any point in time for their
Right,
use.
right. So simply, it's a documentation repo or repository, right? That's where documents get kept, or that's where the company keeps a lot of their records, right? Like also Kiana said, you can actually use it for even more than that, right? You can host some, now they can host simple websites on there, right? That can be also used on that as well. So SharePoint is actually a great tool, like Kiana mentioned, and it's possible that when you guys get on the market, you might be using something like that. Something like that. Also, something called Confluence. So we'll get into some of those some of those tools later on. But so to Eman's point, something like that, something like a SharePoint. Sometimes when a document is placed on there, right? Only one person can make edits, right? So if they make an edit, unless they close out of it, you won't be able to get on to do your work. So that's also, that can be at risk, right? How do we solve it, right? Maybe we need to move it from the SharePoint environment to something else so we can interact with it. So that's a good one. Thank you. Anybody else, or does it make sense?
Could a risk be something like adding a certain code or something new to the phone, like with email or some type of identifier, and then I guess it's breaking? Could that be something like a risk?
Yep, that's a perfect one. For example, you're in the environment testing, right? Then a developer pushes a new code. It can mess up the state of the application that you're testing. Maybe the state was good to it was ready for testing, but now that there was a new code introduced, it messes everything up and you can't continue your testing. So that can be a risk, right? You can come up with a lot of them, right? Um, yep. And even resources, right? Sometimes you can make the assumption that if there are not enough resources, maybe you won't be able to meet the deadline, right? So that can be a risk as well. And when we say resources, what does it mean? All the system and human resources required to be able to complete the testing, right? So when we say system resources, for example, sometimes maybe the testing that we need to do, we need to do the testing on Jira. We need to do it on SharePoint, right? Systems like those. But if we need all those resources to be able to do our testing, and also human resources, right? How many people do we need to complete the testing? Do we need developers involvement? Do we need them to create data for us, or um, we're good on that? So all those stuff, it has to be in a plan. So when we're taking on the testing, it's smooth and we're able to finish on time. Then the schedule and estimation, right? So dividing work among personnel and estimating when it will be completed, right? So the schedule estimation, for example, if we're doing sprints, then we need to complete our testing within the 2 week sprint, or however long the sprints are. And you guys will talk about sprints later on, so I don't want to confuse you guys. What are sprints again? The simplest definition.
I want to say how you break down the work, but I don't think that's right.
What's that?
I say I want to say how you break
work?
down the work, but I don't think that's right.
So sprints, don't forget it. Sprints, when it comes to agile. Remember, Silas talked about agile is when you develop things in smaller chunks, right? So a sprint, every single one of those chunks is called sprints, right? And a time box for that, it's um some companies do 1 week. I don't know how they do it, but 1 to 4 weeks. But for this course, I think Silas wants you guys to, focus on the 2 weeks, 2 week sprint. So they ask you how long are your sprints? Just tell them 2 weeks and you're good. So this is very important, the criteria, right? So this is the what some of this part, it's important because it tells us how the testing results, it helps us to um come up with the results. So there's something called entrance criteria. Before you get into the environment to start your testing, you have to make sure that all the prerequisites, right? For example, the system needs to be available, the application needs to be in a good standing to be tested. Um, that means you've done your smoke testing, right? Then the exit criteria, also the criteria that it needed to be able to finish your testing or complete the testing, exit your testing environment. Those are exit entrance criteria. What do you need to be able to start your testing? What do you need to be able to finish your testing? All those stuff, some of those, we have them here. When you get a chance, when you get this document, you can go over, try to review a little bit, see how some of the examples that we have under them, right? And like I said, you have this document, so once you get in the real world, you have this to, you know, try to modify it as any way you want to help you do your work. Um, some of the risk assumptions. Um, Also, we have some examples in here as well. Any environmental configuration issue might impact testing schedule, right? And you guys gave some examples, right? So I don't want to spend too much time on this. Once you get it, you can review at your convenient time. And I'm assuming you guys are taking this serious. So some of the entrance criteria, for example, the test plan needs to be in place. You have to complete your test plan before you enter in trying to complete your testing. Also, the requirements needs to be signed off. So if you're getting requirements, you make sure that the requirements are signed off, all issues are ironed out in the requirements, and so you'll be able to write test cases for them. We'll go over how to write test cases soon. And sometimes, for example, if it's a banking application, right, you need different types of users, right? Um, for example, if the whole application is done, right, you need the login to be able to log in as a customer, right? You need to be able to log in as a manager, right? So you'll be testing all these functionalities for customers, what they need to see, what they shouldn't be able to see, all that stuff, you're testing it, right? So you need all those credentials to be able to start your testing. Um, that's when you can also ask for test data, the test data that you need to do your testing with, including the username, the password. If it requires a couple of password different ones, um, an admin, system admin, um, just a regular user, um, all those permissions, right? For what are some of the permissions that a manager will be able to have, or what are some of the activities they will be able to do with the system? It's very different, and those who know a little bit of coding, um you will understand this better. But it's just as simple as, permissions for different types of users. And, exit criteria, all our critical level defects have been resolved. So every defect that you open up, all the issues that you see, you will create a defect tracker for it. And we'll also look at how we create defects. And that's exit criteria. So testing types, some of the testing types, functional testing, um, security testing, performance testing. So you just, follow these and try to edit accordingly. Your test environment, the resources that we just talked about, test manager to be able to help in creating test plans, testing specialist. Maybe you need two, maybe you need one, three, it all needs to be defined in the test plan. All right, go back to our PowerPoint. So the reason for test plan, right? So test plan serves as the blueprint, technical blueprint, like how we have it in a design phase for SDLC. This is a blueprint here. It also helps us to determine what kind of effort will be required to be able to verify and validate the application. When we say effort, also the time estimations as well. And it guides our thinking. This is the main one, right? We need something to guide us as far as how we're thinking about testing. And yeah, of course, it needs to be reviewed by either peer review or management review? Right, any questions? Is this like something hard to comprehend or you guys understand it? It's just some tedious document that you'll be dealing with, that's all.
I don't think it's hard to understand. I think just memorizing all of
Right.
this.
Yeah, I like how, you guys are applying stuff, right? It's not, don't, you're not, just don't just memorize everything. Try to apply it, right? Um, for example, you learned about a blueprint, right? Being a tech, um, like architectural design to go off of as far as building your software. So we're saying this is also kind of like that for testing. So just try to apply it while we go. Just wanted to like throw in some agile foundation values in here. Um, when we talk about agile, you have to really be adaptable or try be able to embrace change, right? Because for example, like some places won't run it to the T, they will do whatever helps them be more productive. So you have to embrace it when you get on the field. You have to, oh, this is what the company is doing. Let's go. Let's work with it. And the main goal for agile is, software quality. And this is why I wanted to throw this in there. Um, that's why testing is so important because we're not really too focused on documentation. We're more focused on the quality, right? Trying to deliver something that um, will be beneficial to our customer. And also um, it also helps us to try to um, get the customers to be at ease, especially when we're doing frequent delivery. They know we're actually working. We're not just sitting there, we're doing work. And it also encourages collaboration and promotes communication. So sometimes in your interviews, right, they can ask you some of these questions. Why do we even need to implement agile? Why? What's the point of it? Right? And these are the values. These are why it's so important. Not spend too much time on it. These talks about the difference. I think Silas has it. All right, let's get into test cases. All right. Also, Silas will be sending out a test case document that will also serve as a template for you guys. So when you get on the market, you can utilize that as well. But everything that we need to be able to understand test cases, um, it's in here. Even though on a high level, but should make sense. So when we talk about test cases, it's a set of actions to um, execute it to verify a feature or functionality of a software. So there's something called independent verification and validation, IV and V, right? So the whole purpose of test cases is to verify and validate the feature, right? Yeah. The developers, the business analysts gathered the requirement, the developers worked on it, and we need to verify that they actually what the build whatever the requirement said. And if the requirements are wrong, it's not on the tester, it's on the business analyst, right? Especially if you did your testing right, um, it's not on you. The what do we have in the test cases document? We have an input action, output, or expected results, right? So we input something and then we get a result out, right? And that result is what we are expecting. And if it's not met, then we get a failed criteria. If what we expect, we input an action, and then whatever we get out of it is not matching what we're expecting, then it's going to give us a failed criteria. And if it's matching, then it's pass criteria, right? And also we have the steps that we need to complete the testing. And everything that we do for IT, it's a very high level. We try to make it easy to read and understand. All right. So when you're creating test cases, put that in mind, especially the steps. Right. Any questions?
Can you repeat the V and IV thing again?
Independent verification and validation. That's the whole um everything that we're trying to do as far as test cases. We're trying to for every single requirement, we're trying to verify it independently. It shouldn't be dependent on all any other requirements. And also we're trying to validate it. So independent verification, IV, and validation, the V. When you get on the market, they ask you, do you have any experience as far as testing goes? Um, you can tell them, yes, I've helped in testing. Um, so you can put in some of the types of testing that we just learned about, the one that you're comfortable with. You also helped in creating test cases to independently verify and validate the features. We don't really assume anything at all. You have to test every single thing, right? Don't make any assumptions. That's when you get into trouble. All right, it's almost 8. Let's take some time. Let's take 15 minutes. Come back at 8:15, and we'll get going. We'll get into how we create test cases. Let's get into test cases real quick. And essentially for your test cases, this is what goes on it. In a way, this is a small sample, right? So your test cases will have the purpose for your testing. For example, to verify and validate Facebook application, right? So we'll be using a Facebook application as an example here, right? So also an acceptance criteria for test cases. users shall be able to have an access to use Facebook, right? So this is just a criteria that um just like the acceptance criteria for user stories, right? This is something that we need to be able to have access to the system or the application or to be able to fully um use the system in order for us to be able to do our work, right? So in this case, we had to have an access to the Facebook application to be able to carry out the um, testing. There's also something called precondition, right? The environment needs to be in place. The conditions that needs to be met for us to be able to do our testing. So the main thing is the environment, right? It has to be in place. Then you have your whoever created it, the author, the date that it was created, um, and then we get into you see these columns, the test case ID, test scenario, test steps, expected results, the actual results, and the fail criteria. The three most important ones that you see on most test cases will be the test steps, the expected results, and a pass or fail criteria. Right. So let's go ahead and get into it. Any questions at all? So the test case ID, you can come up with it. Usually you can do an abbreviation based on how many test cases you feel like you'll be able to use to complete the application. You can start from 001 or you can start from triple zeros one, especially if you feel like the test cases are going to be like thousands of them, right? But if you feel like it's only 10 of them, then you can just do for example, the FB stands for the Facebook, right? And then you can just add a number to it. So you would just continue writing until um, you have a test case for all the requirements. So for example, for the first one, let's say the requirement is to have a working URL, right? That's the requirement. And I'm not talking about user stories or anything like that, just the requirement, right? So that's the requirement that we need to satisfy. So in this case, the test scenario is going to be for us to verify that application URL works, right? That's what we're trying to verify and validate. So the test step is going to be for us to be able to navigate using the URL that they provide. This is needs to be provided, right? Um, so the first test step would be navigate to the Facebook with the following URL, right? So when we click on it, it has to open Facebook, right? Believe it or not, that's a test case. So in this scenario, that test case passed. So users shall be directed to the Facebook homepage. So this is what we're expecting, right? So if we carry out the test step and this happens, then our actual results is as expected. And in this case, this test case is a pass, right? It did what we're expecting it to do. So also, when you get in a real environment, sometimes they will have a system for you to, to write your test cases. It doesn't have to be Word document or um, Excel sheets or spreadsheets. So um, this might be mapped out for you already to input information. So now that we're able to navigate to the URL, right? We're able to go to the Facebook page, right? So who can tell me a test case for the email box? a test step to be able to validate that email box
Enter in
based
the
on.
email.
Mhm. So yeah, that's one. First of all, we need to click to make sure that it will give us the cursor, right? So every detail we test cases, you need all the details, right? First of all, you click in it, and then there has to be a cursor that's being displayed for you to be able to type, right? So and sometimes they will tell you don't those details it's not needed, but like I said, don't assume anything, right? So the next test scenario is to verify the login works with positive data, right? Remember we talked about positive and negative testing, right? So this is when we're trying to verify our positive scenario and the negative scenario. So enter username and a password. And so this data needs to be provided because the system you don't have an account for the system, right? The data. So this will probably go on the precondition, right? Test data needs to be available. So they will provide a username and a password, and then when you enter the username and a password, you click login. What needs to happen is user shall be directed to the Facebook page, right? And if it happens, it's as expected. If not, then you can fill this out, not as expected, and it will be failed. And if it's as expected, then it will be passed. Any questions? So the negative scenario, this data also needs to be provided, or they can tell you this is negative scenario. So just create come up with any bad password or username and go with it. So this scenario, we're verifying that the login doesn't work with the negative data. So this would be a negative testing, right? So in this case, you enter a bad username and a bad password. Then you click on login. What needs to happen? Unsuccessful error message shall be displayed. So we go to Facebook and we just type in whatever, a bad data, and then we click on login. This is what we need to see. We need to see this error message. All right. Sometimes they want the text itself. They want you to have the text in the test case. Or sometimes they just want you to say that there's an error message for that, right? So I'll say just do the detailed one so nobody has any issues with it. So in this case, for the negative scenario, what would you have for the actual results?
As expected.
Yes. Why? It didn't work. So why do we have as expected?
Is this what you wanted? You wanted it to not work or
Okay.
show that it didn't
Excellent.
work.
Excellent. So that's exactly what we want. We want an error message, right? And if that happens, then it passed. What if we put in the bad password and then it logs you in? That's a big problem, right? So that's why we do the negative scenario. We have to make sure that issue is not happening. That's how, a bank, I mean, think about it. When a bank app, you're able to log in with any bad information, data, how would you ever bank with that system? All right, so we need to verify and validate that that's not the case. Yep, so this is just on couple of examples. So in this Facebook test, you will test the password field as well. You would test the login um button, and the button sometimes we even test the color. If the requirement says it needs to be blue, you have to write a test case for that. Verify that the login button is blue in color. If it's red, then it fails, right? Verify that when you click on it, something happens. Uh, this is a small test on this form, right? Just this form alone, you can have multiple use test cases based on the requirements, right? So you're testing based on the requirements. So you only write in test cases for what the requirement says. Does that make sense? Don't make any assumptions and try to add in or remove test cases as you go. Just follow the requirements. All right. Questions? So in the end for our project, I'll have you guys we'll give you an application that you will be working on. The application has some issues also just to also see your thinking process as well. Just so we know you get a process. Any questions? Let me see. And when the test fails, you have to log a defect, right? Which we'll get into how that process works as well. But for the meantime, let's talk about RTM. Something called RTM, like we talked about before. And first of all, any questions on test cases?
Yeah, I was typing some of my questions. I was saying like, what if our login info is correct, but then instead of Facebook, the error is Facebook or something that's spelled wrong,
Mhm.
then would
Yeah,
that,
go ahead.
yeah,
Finish.
that would be considered like error from, the back end, right?
Yeah, so as small as a typo error, you have
Mhm.
to report it.
Okay.
That's why they give you the text, the verbiage that needs to show up. If there anything missing at all, that's a fail and needs to be fixed. There has to
Okay.
be a bug created to get that fixed. That's why when you get on the website and it has a lot of issues like spelling issues, you have to be very adamant to be using that system. Because if you're not careful, you might be using like a bad. Because there's a lot of hackers out there trying to mimic websites just to dupe people. So when you see that's one of the things that should be a red flag when you see spelling issues, because the type of testing that the website goes through, it would be hard to see any spelling issues. If that happens, the stakeholders will get really upset. So that's part of the testing as well. Answer that question. Any other questions?
I just wanted to add on to that. I remember you said if that happens, that's called a showstopper.
Not
And
something that small. Something that
well,
will be a showstopper is something that will stop you from testing. For example, they give you a data for username and password that is supposed to be a good data, right? It's supposed to log you into the system, and they give you that login and it's not working. You put the data in, you can't log in, right? That's a showstopper because you have to be able to log in to get into the app to test other stuff. For example, the profile information and all that stuff. So if it's supposed to be good data, but it's not working, that's a showstopper.
okay,
It stops you from completing your testing.
and that is the technical term for it.
Showstopper. Yep.
Hey, buddy.
All right. Any other questions? Let's see. Hey Ruth, can you tell me what a RTM is as far as the definition? What does it mean? See if Ruth is with us. Maybe not. Who can help us? I just want a very simple definition for that. Said it multiple times. Anadra, you remember? What a RTM is?
The meaning of it, or what
The
the
meaning?
abbreviated means.
Oh, just the meaning definition.
That is requirements to test case and matching, and when requirements match test case and
Right. So don't forget the term mapping, right?
okay,
So
map.
we're trying to map the requirements to the test cases. So now you have your test cases created, right? Now you create this RTM to map all the test cases to requirements. Every single requirement needs to have a test case. If it's not, then you didn't really do a complete testing, unless it's out of scope. So what's out of scope? When we say requirements are out of scope, when in our test plan we talked about it. What does it mean? Anybody?
Non-functional requirements.
Yes, something that we want, it's not under testing, right? Including non-functional requirements. In scope is everything that we're testing. So the parameters, some of the stuff that are included, you have to have your requirement ID because you've been mapping that to the test cases ID, right? So that means you need to have a test cases ID, right? And the good thing is when for every single requirement, try to keep the whatever number that the requirement has the same as the test case. Just so when you are mapping it, it won't be confusing. It has to be one-to-one. And you have your test cases status, pass or fail, right? Then the defects and the status, pass or fail. Right. So this is an example of actually let me pull that up. While I'm pulling that up, any questions for RTM? So remember I said like for every document that you will create, you have to have your table of content, for example. So it starts with table of content. Of that here. I will actually I'll have to let Silas send that to you. But And we'll look at it real quick, beginning of next class. All right. It's another one called test summary report. You know, so when you're in agile, it's not this document heavy, right? Documentation heavy. So don't worry about it too much. We have to cover it because you might get a job that is waterfall. That's when they will require all these documentations. So test summary report, it's all the reports that after our testing effort, all the report that we create to summarize everything that we did, right? Can be as simple as what you see on the screen, right? Test case ID, total number of test cases that were executed. Let's say you created 1,000 test cases, right? That number will go there. The number of test cases that you have to re-execute because it failed, the defects, deviation, or any problems that you faced with that test case, and the number of test cases that passed and how many that failed, right? So it's sort of it's trying to we're trying to analyze our testing effort with this document, right? On approval time and date and approved by whoever signs off. So it's as simple as this. All right. Questions on test summary report or RTMs? All right. So defect report. Remember I said whenever you run into a bug, right? When you run into a bug, you have to create a defect report or bug report, right? So how do you create a bug report? This can be done on Jira as well, right? Just like how you create your user stories, you can do this on Jira as well. So the first section will be steps to reproduce, right? So you have your description of the bug, right? And then you have your steps to recreate or reproduce the issue, right? So when you're sending it to the developer, right? So the developer needs to know how you arrived at the issue and also the environment that you were testing in. Was it prod, UAT? UAT is the same as staging and um, is the same as staging, or sometimes it's called training, right? Did it happen in a dev environment or did it happen in a QA environment? Just so the developer can go straight to the environment. I think somebody's not muted. Is it Vandaria? I think you need to mute. Yeah.
Oh, shit. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. You good. Any questions on that? You also need your sometimes if it's browser issue, you need your browser information as well. Was it Chrome or was it Safari or what kind of browser were you testing on? Right. One of the most important things is to add screenshots. Just so they don't look at you crazy. They go sometimes, trust me, you see a bug and the next time you get into the system, then you're not seeing a bug anymore because they pushed some code that fixed it, right? So you'll be looking at yourself like, am I crazy or is it just right? But if you have a screenshot, then you know you actually saw that bug. So adding screenshots to your report is really important. And indicate if there should be any additional regression testing, right? And of course, like whenever you see a defect, it's always good to go back and test the system to make sure it's not affecting any other part of the whole all the other modules. Right, questions? We're coming to so next class, I'm gonna show you the RTM template, and also I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna have a screenshot of how a bug report gets created or how it looks like in Jira. Not on Jira, but I'll have screenshots for you. You don't get on Jira till Godfrey. So yeah, this is the end of this presentation. So something very, very exciting. Next class, we getting into databases. Nothing hard, nothing crazy, just light ones. So who's excited for that? Anadra is. I see Van Ruye. Yep. Yeah. That's what you excited for that? All right. All right. That's more practical, so I think that should be more, more fun. All right. Any questions overall? As far as the theory side of testing, any questions at all? You guys got everything down. That's awesome. So Silas, is Silas on? Okay, maybe not. But
I
I'll
think
tell him to. Yeah, I'll tell him to send you guys the
Harvey
PowerPoint
there,
for
Silas.
what's that?
I think my jersey put him to sleep.
Oh, okay, yeah. Man, how you gonna be a Man U fan in these days? But yeah, I mean, yeah, so I'm gonna tell him to send you guys the PowerPoint for databases, and if you have a chance, you can look at it. If not, don't worry about it. We'll look at everything um when we get in class. And there might be a pop quiz on Wednesday. If not, definitely Monday. So get ready for that.
Please,
Can
let's
you do it on Wednesday since Mother's Day is?
I was gonna say do it Monday.
You
Some
guys
of us
want a
are the
holiday
same.
for Mother's Day? I'll
Well, I
give you a
gotta take my
holiday.
mama out.
The only reason I say Monday is because that gives us like Thursday, Friday. You know, you
All
get
right,
four.
I'm gonna
I,
move it to
I work.
Wednesday.
I work Tuesday and Wednesday, so it's like, and I was sick all last week. You're not giving me enough time. I'm gonna take my Monday.
All right, don't forget. All right, from now until
Please
next
don't
week.
make-
Next week, Wednesday.
All right,
Oh,
thanks.
next week Wednesday. Okay.
Wednesday, I will not be able to be in class because I'll be flying back to New York. So We'll
Which
take
one
it
is
for
that?
you.
This Wednesday or the next one? Sheila,
No, Wednesday. Can you hear
what's that?
me? Next week,
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Oh, okay. So you can have yours on Monday then.
Okay.
All right. If not, the following Monday. All right. So
And Sheila, after you take the test on Monday, just link up with me and then before Wednesday.
it might be different.
Let's
It'll
talk
be no
business.
use. It'll be no use. It might be different quiz for her and for you. Yeah. All right. If no other questions, we'll adjourn. I'll see you guys on Wednesday. Be ready for databases. Awesome. All right. Have a good one.